I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Would you please call roll?
Mr. Christensen?
Here.
Mr. McGregor?
Here.
Mr. Modrak?
Here.
Mr. Nagel?
Here.
Mrs. Rule? Here. Mr. Scalzo?
Here.
Mr. Spicuzza?
Present.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mrs. Dobos?
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have some special recognitions of some community members who have really helped us during this last year. The pandemic has impacted this community in many different ways. However, it is during trying times like these when I think back to the wise words of Mr. Fred Rogers, who once famously said, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping.'" Unfortunately, the pandemic has not just been a healthcare tragedy, it's also been tremendously damaging to many aspects of the economy and has cost many people their livelihood. Fortunately, for the people who live in this area, we have groups like the South Hills Interfaith Movement, or SHIM, which has repeatedly stepped up for this community by conducting multiple large-scale food drives for area families in need. Tonight, we will formally recognize SHIM for its Herculean efforts in helping to feed area families during this once-in-a-century event by presenting a certificate of recognition to Mr. James Guffey, the organization's executive director. Another community partner which has proven invaluable over the past several months has been Spartan Pharmacy. If you live in Bethel Park and you have been vaccinated over the past few months, the chances are pretty good that Spartan Pharmacy is responsible for your inoculation. From the beginning, Spartan Pharmacy has worked day and night to help protect the men and women of this community. In March and again in April, Spartan Pharmacy vaccinated more than 500 Bethel Park School District employees, contract employees, and volunteers. This is on top of the drive-through flu vaccination clinic Spartan Pharmacy conducted in the fall in IMS parking lot. Adam Rice, who owns Spartan Pharmacy in this area, has just done an amazing job, and we'd like to recognize him and his employees, as well as all who volunteered for their amazing efforts during this crisis. And finally, we would be remiss if we failed to acknowledge the amazing efforts of Mrs. Eileen Wallace. Mrs. Wallace is an elementary school nurse in the district. She has regularly volunteered during Spartan Pharmacy's clinics, and she was chiefly responsible for the employee COVID vaccination clinics held in March and April. Mrs. Wallace, on behalf of the entire Bethel Park School District community, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you have done and continue to do to help look after the health and well-being of the boys and girls, as well as the employees of Bethel Park School District. And I would like for all of you to please come forward, and I'll present you with your certificates of appreciation. Mr. Guffey, in sincere appreciation of your extraordinary efforts in helping to feed area families in need through your food distribution events. Mrs. Wallace. Is this on? Not?
Janet.
Sincere appreciation of your efforts in helping to coordinate and administer the inoculation of more the 500 Bethel Park School District staff members with the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you. And Spartan Pharmacy, in sincere appreciation of your efforts in helping to inoculate more than 500 Bethel Park School District staff members with the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you.
I'll return to you.
Okay, I'd like a motion, please, to, for the intent to adopt the agenda items for business.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Nagel, seconded by Mr. Christensen.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
I'd like to announce executive session on April 20th, 2021, and April 27th, 2021 for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information. At this time, we'll have the student government report from Mr. Lippert.
Thank you, Mrs. Douglas. Currently, we are finalizing next week's plans for Teacher Appreciation Week. Monday is the Staff Appreciation Breakfast, and Tuesday is the Lunch Lady Luncheon, as well as the Snack Cart and Bus Driver Breakfast. The Bus Driver Breakfast is where we drop off coffee and donuts to them before school. Wednesday is for the teachers, and Thursday is the Bethel Park High School Staff Luncheon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lippert. And now we have the PTA, PTO report. Ms. Morrow?
Hi. So I'm going to start with Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln is offering two $500 scholarships to current Bethel High School seniors who attended Lincoln Elementary for at least 2 years, have been accepted to attend post-high school training or college, and have been actively involved and in good academic standing. If you know any interested candidates, please have them see Kathy Janisic at the high school main office for an application, and the deadline for that is Friday, April 30th. It was such a hit last time, they're doing it again. Lincoln is having a Moe's Taco fundraiser kit. Pre-orders are to be placed actually by yesterday, and pickup is in the Lincoln Loop on April 28th. See their Facebook page for details. Lincoln students will once again help prepare the Lincoln Garden for the growing season. Families turn the soil in the beds, lay down burlap, secure bean trellises, and spread mulch, and the fruits of their labor are donated to SHIM. And the Lincoln families helped raise over $8,000 for the American Heart Association through their Jump Rope for Heart campaign. The students raised money for a good cause and became heart heroes. And they are still working on their continuous fundraisers, which include box tops, Amazon Smile Market Day, and Rite Aid Pharmacy fundraising. George Washington participated in a sock drive with BP Police for Socks with a Mission. They are starting a coin drive to collect for Smiles for Sean, a local childhood cancer charity. A student at George Washington has made it her birthday project to collect food donations for SHIM, which will be collected at the school food truck event next month. And George Washington is offering a $500 PTO scholarship to a high school senior and George Washington alum. Administrative Professionals Day was celebrated with a PJ Day for the entire school. The winner of last year's science fair was finally able to collect her prize, being principal for a day and having lunch with the principal. And additional planning and preparations are underway for their Food Truck Fridays in May, as well as other spring fundraising plans. Teacher Appreciation and Student Appreciation Week plans are being made for May. At Neil Armstrong, the Battle of the Books is underway with the students. The PTO is planning Teacher Appreciation Week and trying to think outside the box for special things they can do for the students before the end of the year, and have a few ideas in the works. Planning for next year has begun. All the elementary PTO and PTA groups have posted in their respective Facebook pages asking families of fourth graders to feel free to join the Neil Armstrong PTO Facebook page in preparation for their transition to the new school next year. As of now, that's all that's going on over at NAMS. And at Independence, they're planning teachers' COVID-friendly lunch for May 5th. They're also having a gift card giveaway each day during Teachers Week. And 7th and 8th grade planning stages for the last day of school lunch are in progress, and they are working on other treats for their students as well for the last week of school. And that's all from the PTOs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Solicitor's report?
I just wanted to call the board's attention to, under the other section of the agenda, the non-consent items. There are a few items that we had discussed last week as a follow-up to those in relation to board action that's necessary. And then you'll also notice that under F5, the memorandum of understanding is up for renewal between the school district and the municipality. And that's something that's required by school code. It must be renewed at least every 2 years. And the provisions of that have not changed since the prior MOU. And it merely outlines the communication and coordination between the two police departments. So just wanted to call your attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any committee reports at this time?
I'd like to report on Still Center. Because, the pandemic has made a lot of changes in a lot of many areas. And what we have changed our administration restructuring. We've also reprogrammed a lot of our programs, and we looked at different ways of some of the processes so that we were able to bring to the districts even a lower tuition this year, but added new programs. So we've really rethought and relooked at what we've been doing, which was a good thing coming out of the pandemic. The other thing is that we have been working on strategic planning at the AIU and plan to have that process all completed by this fall. And Shasta this year will be having a virtual event where we will be recognizing the students that have overcome challenges throughout the year. Usually we meet at the Hilton, but this year, due to the pandemic, we're going to do it virtually. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for being involved in all of those. Dr. Walsh, Superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Dobus. Good evening, everyone. First, there is in board docs a piece of correspondence I thought the board would like to see as a celebration of music in our schools month. We got a note from Brighton Music Center and thanking and honoring the board for the commitment to music in the schools. That's posted for your reference. Second, I wanted to share a couple pieces of good news. If you didn't pick up on it in social media, but Mrs. Dumont and Mr. Villani both were recognized recently by the Pittsburgh Penguins, had been nominated for a Most Valuable Principal Award. And we're proud of those nominations for Mrs. Dumont and Mr. Villani in that recognition. And finally, I have two presentations to offer to the board tonight. First, related to summer work projects, what we have on tap across the campuses, and also some information and some facts and ideas about the summer learning programs that we have lined up. We'll start with Mr. Fierst and Mr. McLaughlin, who have information to share with the board about our summer work projects, capital projects.
Yeah, Nick and I have been working on the capital projects plan It's a work in progress. We've tried to map out some of the things we see over the next 5 years. Ideally, over the next year, we're going to be able to really get an inventory of all of our equipment, its ages, when it was put in, its useful life, so we can do a better planning job out into the future. But for this summer, we talked about it briefly at the last Finance Committee meeting, but the projects that we have planned are lengthy. I think you received a proposal from the architects for some of this work that we would need their assistance on, and time is somewhat of the essence because even with it being April, we're probably not going to be able to get all these projects done over the summer. Some of them will probably extend into the fall. But right now, the list really includes replacement of marquees for the IMS school and out front here at Edmond. There are a number of paving jobs. The real test with the paving is what do we need to do at the elementary schools without doing too much, but also keeping in mind that regardless of what comes out of the feasibility study and what direction this board takes, you're probably still going to have to operate these buildings for the next couple years. So we do need to do some paving, at least at a minimum, to keep them in working condition. We did walk the grounds and did identify some needs, but we'll need the architect to really help us and advise us on what degree of paving is going to need to be done at those buildings. We also need to do some extensive paving at the entrance area at the bus garage and a replacement of a gate down there. So that one we know we're going to have to do, and probably it's going to be fairly extensive. As far as NAMs, right now we're hoping to update the sign on the side of the building so it's much more recognizable what building you're approaching as you're approaching. The letters are very small and very not distinguishable as you're driving up to that building. That's a small project, and we'll probably handle that in-house. We also have the larger projects of replacing the front windows to that building that are water is getting in and they're glazed over. So we did have a proposal from the architect to do that. There will be some lead time in getting those windows in. So even at the schedule we are now, we're not even sure we'll have the windows in by this summer, but it's certainly a project that could be done on weekends and evenings if it needs to be done while school is in session. We also have the issue with the color flooring at the NAMS cafeteria. One of the issues there will be investigating why half of the cafeteria is discoloring and kind of warping a little bit. It has to do, we're assuming, with some of the boilers down below, so it might require some insulation so that if we replace the flooring, the same thing doesn't occur again. So that's also in the plans for this summer. At IMS, we have to replace a water line. I think it was mentioned that it was leaking. It is not leaking, but the line does need to be replaced, the main water line. That's probably a project that we can probably handle in-house for the most part. The bigger issues are the drainage issues and the gym floor replacement at the IMS gym. Figuring out what's causing it, whether it's the vapor barrier, which we suspect is just disintegrated over time. But at any rate, we do plan on hopefully getting some type of remediation of the water issues that are causing the floor to warp and then replacing the floor. Hopefully it will remediate the odor issues that occur in that area as well. At the high school, you have some extensive probably issues with drainage around the high school. We have water getting into the building in a number of areas, so it's probably going to require extensive research by the architectural firm that you use to determine what's causing that problem, and likely we'll have to do some grading to flush water away from the building, and possibly some French drains and some additional sealing on the buildings. So that's probably the most extensive project. We also want to replace exterior security cameras at the high school. There are 20-plus cameras that are no longer functioning at the exterior of the high school, so they desperately need replaced so that we can have coverage on the campus. We did have a security consultant come in and advise us on the types of cameras, the options we have, ease of management moving forward, and also placement of those cameras so that they're much more visible to what we need to see on the campus. So that is a work in progress. So those are the major projects we have planned for this summer. Once I have more solid numbers, I will get that out to you in an information packet. We're still trying to pin down some costs, but this really is all going to hinge on what direction you want to go with an architectural engineering firm to proceed with these projects. So that's probably the first decision that we need to make collectively. And I know that you received some information in the Friday packet summarizing those proposals.
Mr. McCausland,
Yes.
I know you weren't here, but last year we were talking about some ventilation issues at William Penn that we didn't address the way it was recommended, or any of the issues in William Penn or any of the other elementary schools?
We
pressing?
we did replace, Nick, you're probably better at addressing this than me, but I thought we just replaced an emergency generator. Was that at William Penn?
That's at William Penn. We are actually in the process of getting bids to get the generator replaced. It actually died last week. I have spoken with Mr. Kramer about what is necessary for the exhaust systems that were talked about, and if this is we just, as Mr. McCausland has said, we need direction of where we want to spend the money.
We have, not for this summer, but we already have identified there are a number of HVAC issues, but we were hoping that we'd have a little more direction from the feasibility study and what direction we want to take before we start investing large sums of money in some of those buildings. So, can we make them work another year, and are they functioning? Yes. But there is going to be a time down the road in the next couple years where we are going to have to address issues. And right now we're really focusing on IMS and NAMS because we believe regardless of what happens with the feasibility study, those buildings are likely to remain as is. They might have a different grade configuration, but we're still going to have those buildings open and functioning. So we're trying to address those types of issues first.
Right. Thanks.
I don't know if you have anything else to add, Nick, that I do.
You covered pretty much everything and explained where we were with the paving and along those lines of making sure that we spend smart money versus just money.
And a lot of these projects we have identified, we're going to use ESSER's 2 money from the CARES grant to fund. So that it's one-time money. We're getting about $1.2 million. And right now, the projects we have slotted for this summer that we think are eligible will be slightly over $1 million. So we're going to use a majority of those funds to do these projects.
So from the summary that you gave us last Friday, you gave us both proposals for the architect, and then you summarized them for us. There doesn't seem to be a huge difference in cost. We have Hayes has done the feasibility study for us. HSDR is a new set of eyes on some of the things that we haven't had before. And I know that people have had some hesitation about some of the things that we had Hayes do in the past, including some of the high school issues with the HVAC and the water and so forth. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of differences monetarily unless I'm not seeing something. Is that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that you don't know is that we really don't have a quote from Hayes on the water issues at the high school.
Okay.
So, HHSDR put in their estimate at 37.4. There's nothing to compare that to because they're pretty much saying we'll have to investigate to really get you a price on that, which is
If
fair.
you're all looking for this, it's in the April 23rd email, and there's 3, if you're calling it up on, okay.
But again, it's really your preference on who you feel comfortable doing them. You can certainly split them. I think I indicated that if you split them with 2 different architects, then you'd probably have to do 2 different bid packages. There isn't economies of scale if you selected one architect to do it, because you could put this all into one bid package and have different prime contractors for the different types of jobs. And you would save money on advertising.
Yeah, Mr. McCausland, this is Russ. I think we have to also look at the completeness of the bid packages too. I mean, one was just a 2-page document with not a lot of detail. Or are we going to get more backup and more detail for that from HHSDR?
If we actually did choose to use them, yes, we would get a deeper scope of services. Really, the architect was coming out and trying to be quick about giving us what he thinks is his best guess on these numbers, and we would lock those down, obviously, with any architect we used in an agreement.
Well, yeah, I just think we have to do whatever way we do it, we need to do it with both of them at the same time to make sure we're comparing apples and apples.
At one
The
time,
spirit, I'll just jump in and comment that I guess we needed to make sure the board was still comfortable with the relationship that you have with the Hayes Design Group. And it's been quite some time you've worked with this firm, and they just, wrapping up their feasibility study, ready to move on to the next phase of summer projects and guide us through that. But if there's any resistance or hesitation on the board, based on any other observations or concerns you've had, I guess we needed to know that, because that was the sort of the spirit behind getting a second quote, to say, is the board still comfortable with Hayes Design Group as the architect of record for the school district?
so these figures are just their design. It's not what it's going to cost us, right?
This is for
This is-
design.
We have to bid everything out.
This is
for cost.
design, bidding, their oversight of the project. So it's investigation, design, bidding, and their construction management of the projects. This is not the cost of the actual project. Those projects will be over $1 million. But they all did quote the same services.
I think that Hayes did a fabulous job with the feasibility study and the demographics and so forth, but these 6 items are not really part of that feasibility study. Is that correct? These are,
Some of the items were identified.
Yeah, they
in
were
the study
identified through the feasibility
Yeah.
study.
as issues to address.
Some were, but not all, correct?
like
Well, the
IMS
paving issues
floor.
we were aware of.
Right,
so-
but the IMS floor was not one that was identified. That was something the board started asking
It was
questions
not. It was
about.
not, but the cafeteria floor at NAMS, the windows at NAMS, and some of the paving were identified in the feasibility study. The water issues were not addressed in the feasibility study because it focused on K through 8. It did not focus on the high school.
Okay, but so the high school was not included, but NAMS, it's questionable whether it should have been included in the feasibility study or not.
Anyone have any other comments or any other?
I guess, what's your recommendation? Who do you want to work with?
I can work with either architect you want to work with. It isn't, I don't have the history you have with Hayes. Obviously, his presentation was much more detailed because he has been in the district and he did the feasibility study. So I would expect it to be more detailed. I have worked with HHSDR. That's why I invited them, because I found them to be competent and responsive to whatever project I gave them. I think they're both capable firms. It's your comfort level, because whoever you choose is going to be the person that's going to be presenting to you and giving you the information. They'll also be working with me and Nick, but I think they're both capable architects. I mean, that's a political answer, but
Yeah. But I guess from a cost standpoint, can we compare them yet with the data they provided? Because there's still a TBD under the fee for the
I mean, from a cost standpoint overall, I think obviously HHSDR is the more affordable, because we don't know what we're going to pay for the water issues at the high school, and they have,
Right.
in their proposal, agreed to waive any fees related to the NAMS projects. They'll do that if they get the other projects.
I've had experience with both firms. One was still Center and the other here. And they both have done a good job as far as the quality of oversight and work.
And my experience with Mr. Hayes and his group has been good so far. I mean, they have been responsive, and when I call him, he's very quick to get me an answer back. So I haven't had a negative experience with him either.
Let me ask this question. Mr. Spicuzza, I think when you and I had toured the high school about a year or so ago with the flooring issues on the first floor and the water issues down there, there was already some, Mr. Fierce can answer this too. I believe there was already some mitigation done. Was that your understanding also? So with that mitigation done and then an investigation going back to the design, do we have a clear indication of what exactly, compared to what is still going on, what was fixed, as Mr. Spicuzza and I were told things were fixed, and then where we're going with this?
The mitigation that was done was an interior mitigation. All the main issues we think are actually coming from the exterior of the building. Mr. Hayes does believe that there's potentially a collapsed French drain that is causing a blockage that's actually forcing the water against the wall that's causing it to seep through. So with all that happening, the actual waterproofing on the wall has disintegrated because there's been too much pressure against it, which is causing everything to seep through. I'm not exactly sure if that's the answer, but that's one thing we will not find out until there's an investigation done on the exterior of the building.
I knew we were building the high school, one of the problems was the water, that was a water plant. And when they were building the high school, the big issue was that was a water plane, and we were forced to move the high school down to that field, taking it from the original footprint. We knew there was going to be water problems. I mean, so I'm not surprised that they're showing up now.
I think too, Kim, if I recall from working there, the original water problem was one section. I think this new water problem is in the courtyard, which was never a problem in the first.
But the
7
classroom that
years.
is closed is against the courtyard.
I believe so.
Okay, I'm just
Where that-
trying to.
where that
I'm
other
just
water
trying to-
problem-
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to picture what's the situation. So,
Where that other water problem was coming from the one hillside where the, like the elevator's at.
okay.
I think,
I'll also tell you that these numbers are all not to exceed numbers. I think we indicated that, but obviously if it takes less time, it won't cost you as much. If it takes more time, they're held to this number. So,
In terms of the bidding that occurs afterward, is there any advantage to one group over the other, or it's all, the bidding all happens as a result of their specs?
yeah, the bid is really the result of the spec that's built and how we want to build the spec and what alternatives we want to, alternates we want to build into the bidding spec.
Yeah,
And at that point, it's pretty structured.
sorry, Doug.
That's okay. Go ahead, Russ.
It's truly important to make sure that we give the most detailed and bid package that we can, because that's the only way we're going to get the results that we want and not get additions or extras or add-ons as the project moves forward and it's to its end. Sorry.
No, but you are correct. It's the detail of the bid spec is going to structure how your bids come in and what numbers you're going to get. And then it's pretty structured. You're required to pick the lowest responsible bidder at that point.
Yep, and that's why the bid has to be the best that it can be.
That's correct.
do we have a time frame where we should decide tonight or wait till the next meeting? I mean, it's obviously, since there's so much work to be involved, the sooner we can get the architect started getting bids, the better off we can get started this summer with these projects, correct? So do you see time frame where we need to do tonight, or do you want to review these
I don't
bids?
know what else we need
I think we're looking for some direction tonight.
tonight, I would think.
Okay,
There's
Twellen.
I don't think we have any further information that we would really need. So we just have to make a decision about our
So-
comfort level.
And it goes back to that's what I was leading up to, is then this is comfort level of between these two architects.
Yeah, I mean, I've already expressed, I had some hesitation because of the water at the high school, because of the HVAC system at the high school, because the lack of identification of the gym floor replacement need, but other than that, I mean, there's
Doug,
no
I have one other
difference in
question.
Sure, go ahead.
Doug?
the cost.
The water investigation is not included in Hayes's proposal, or it is?
At the high school, it is not.
I guess I misunderstood, because I thought that there was no cost to us for him to investigate that.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
Yes, I
If
think
it's
he's
related
willing
to
to
the
investigate it for no
original
cost,
design.
but the other company included all the services associated with that project.
Okay.
So does that become a significant difference in their pricing proposal then?
It will be. They obviously will have different costs.
Well,
You'll have additional costs related to that project if they do that.
I don't know the HHSDR group at all, but it might be worth having, two vendors that we work with, see how they do. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. Overall, it's a fairly small project, okay? It's not like some of the other things that we're considering. I think if their management fees and their design fees are a little bit less, give them a try.
For all the projects, or do you want us to divide them up?
Because if you get a better cost if you.
No, I would
package it
say all
together.
6, yeah,
Because we're leaning toward Hayes with the whole feasibility stuff.
right.
So this would be another set of eyes and a competitive.
Right.
kind of a-
Yeah, I think it's probably good to have 2 vendors.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Can I ask the solicitor a question? How do we, this is my concern in how this is written. It says, investigate only, no charge if the issue is related to the original design. How do we go back and prove that that issue is related to the original design 11 years later?
You should have drawings and renderings. You probably want to check that. That's a fair question.
I mean, we just,
About how to prove the source of the origination of a problem. And I can see your eyes. It's something to check into.
that's
I
where
can
my
tell you why he
hesitation.
let me give you the history why he put that in there. It's because he understood there was concern from board members that perhaps it was something he did 11 years ago with the design that's causing the water. He missed something. And so his response was, I'll make that good, but if it's not something we did in terms of design, if it's a collapsed drain or a failed pipe, then that's not on the design. That was just the age of the product or the item that was installed. So I think that's the distinguishing piece for him, is to say he's in good faith relationship with the district. If we designed it poorly for the water mitigation, they'll fix that with the designs for it.
So he should be, I mean, if you end up going with them, they should be able to give you those original renderings of the building if you don't have a copy of them on the district's end.
I'm sure we have them. Nick has, they're kept down in Nick's area.
There's somewhere downstairs, but also the construction manager from the project should have record of everything too.
So we need to somehow get to the point of making a decision for,
Well, we need some direction. I think we'll
Yeah.
have to formalize any agreement with anyone and bring it back to you in May, but we can at least, if we have some direction from you and who you'd like us to pursue an agreement with, or if you want us to divide the projects, then we can start that in motion and then bring you formal agreements in May.
do we need that as a formal vote, or just, what do you need from the board?
Well, you're not approving anything tonight, so you don't need a formal vote.
Okay.
No,
You
I just
need to-
think we need the majority of the board to give us the direction
Okay.
they want us to
So
go.
should we just go around? Otherwise, we'll be staring at the wall for a while, I think, so. Russ, you want to start us off? What's your recommendation?
Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
No, please.
Well, to me, I still think that Hayes gave us a more detailed proposal. Worst case, I would maybe split some of the projects, but it doesn't sound like that's where the board wants to go.
So Hayes?
Darren?
No, I agree with that. I'm comfortable with Hayes. I don't know about the other firm. And with the limited proposal, I think that's kind of pushing me towards the Hayes Group. Now, I do remember coming onto the board a year and a half ago, a lot of discussion about some of the designs and some of the problems we were having. So that's kind of fresh in my mind still. So, but I would say I'm leaning towards Hayes at this point.
I'd be comfortable with splitting the projects.
Splitting?
Yeah.
HHSDR.
My caution is the legal term for design issue. I'm okay with Hayes. I'm also okay with splitting. Just getting a new set of eyes on some of this may help us.
Yeah, I think HSSDR, just to have two vendors working on this at the same time. Or, you know, two vendors working with us, I think is good, just to keep price and performance in check.
I agree. I think that I like the competitive nature of having two and a new fresh of eyes, so I'm with HSDR.
I'm going to we'll stay with who's the board comfortable with, and obviously I think we've had a relationship with Hayes, and I'm very comfortable with Kevin Hayes' group.
I am too.
Okay, so we
Okay.
have Hayes, then we've got 5 for Hayes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. The second item on my side of the agenda is Janet's going to take over the floor here, and Dr. O'Rourke is going to talk about the summer learning programs and give you all an idea of the things that they've got so far in terms of design and dates and duration and all sorts of ideas. And then moving forward, we want to start promoting this and getting information out as early as next week is our goal. So unless we hear something really objecting to what you hear from her tonight, then we're going to proceed with these plans and get them out to the community as soon as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Welch. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure, actually, to kind of bring additional detail to what we've been talking about as far as summer programming is concerned for our kids. We're going to have a tiered approach with the idea of benefiting and offering something to all of our kids and looking at the social emotional well-being of our students as well as the academic well-being. So with that being said, counseling services are available and will be offered through Auberly Incorporated, which is our partner with our SAP program at 2 of our elementaries and NAMS, the high school, and IMS. They will offer counseling services virtually as well as in person, depending on the parent request and the student need. As we, excuse me, as we have done in the past, we will have extended school year. Sorry. That is with our most our IEP students that qualify. Thank you, Mr. Scalzo. With our students that qualify for an extended school year program per their IEP. When we looked at our learning loss and skill set, we wanted to offer a full program where something would be available to all students all summer, as well as more of an intensive approach with students most in need. So with that being said, there will be a program that will be available online. Some of the resources that we're looking at are some things that kids are currently using in our system that we're going to extend their use, such as Study Island is one of the options that we're looking at, as well as some of the free resources that are available that some of our neighboring districts and some of our classrooms now are using that are motivators for kids to kind of practice skills in a game-like mode to enhance their understanding and skill and drill practice with the ELA and language arts programs. So that will be offered for the duration of the summer, starting in June and going until we come back in August. Those programs will be offered virtually online at home. as we get with our students that are more at need, if there is a skill deficit, there's a group of students that we're going to invite to come in for in-person instruction for a 3-week intensive remediation program. With that being said, that program will be driven by a prescriptive diagnostic nature, which means that the kids will come in, they'll take a diagnostic, it'll gear the program toward their individual needs and provide a learning pathway to meet those deficits for that time. That'll be facilitated by an adult that will be in the classroom to answer questions and move the kids forward with that. Then we will also offer in that program, the opportunity for students to work in a similar type program, but at a remote from home, driven by a teacher that is checking on their progress as they move forward on a daily basis and working with them. We also, with that being said, those students that will be invited in, we are eager to offer transportation for those students. A parent needs that to be brought in, and their details are available there. Our middle school programs will both be housed at Independence Middle School, and our high school program will be housed at the high school. Currently, we are waiting for declaration of where the elementary program will be driven from based on the students that are coming to us and the usage of the building for other programming. So we want to make that as convenient as we possibly can for the parents and the students that are going to be involved with that. We also, one of the programs that we've been doing for the last few years that will still be offered, this is at a cost. What I've talked about so far is at a free cost for our families. The program at Neil Armstrong that was been offered annually for the last few years, Camp Invention, will be at a cost for parents, but it is also going to continue to run. They are also offering an in-person and a remote option. Details of that are available through our website, but also just Googling Camp Invention Bethel Park, and information will come up with that if anyone is interested to participate in that. And there is a cost of that of $245 per student. Then the last portion of that is offering tutoring for certain students. So with that being said, that'll also be an option based on where the students are as we finish out the school year and what that looks like. We're doing this intensive 3-week in-person session directly following our school year with the intent that the programs will be available for the remainder of the summer for the students at home, but it will also give students the ability and quite frankly, the adults that are involved, an opportunity to, have some rest and relaxation after a very difficult school year. So the in-person program will be that 3 weeks intensive, 4 days a week, 4 hours per day. And then the rest of the summer we'll still have some tutoring going on. We'll still have the program that the kids will have available at home to work at their pace with staff looking and keeping track of who's working, who's not. Credit recovery at the secondary level is also a part of our program. This year, we are going to offer credit recovery free of charge. Typically, it's at cost. However, what the idea of that is it will be free of charge if the students pass the course to create motivation. So the credit recovery would be at the parent's expense at the beginning, and then we would reimburse if the kids pass the credit recovery course. The reason we're doing that is that some of our students who qualify for the credit recovery this year part of the problem is they did not participate. And with that being said, if there's a motivation to ignite their fire to participate, to therefore get the $200 back or whatever the cost of the course is, I think it's a benefit for our kids. They'll learn something, but then also a benefit for the district as well to provide that. So what our next steps are, we are still, as a team, there's the principals and I and Ms. Wells and Mrs. Sutton, Dr. Shu have taken kind of a approach that we've looked at a variety of different things, and many companies that we already deal with have come out with summer programming. So to vet that and to find the best match for us has been a ongoing approach. One of the programs that we really like, when we asked for details and some specifics and some examples, their answer has been that that's coming. And I personally am very hesitant to buy something when I'm being told that it's coming. So they have guaranteed that they're going to get us those products, those examples that we're asking for. If that does come to fruition, we will be able to declare the educational program that we're going to use. However, if it does not, we're going to use one that is an already established program. So that's, we're just waiting for that at this point. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. O'Rourke. Normally, camp invention, how many students we get for that?
I think last year it was 30, 35 that participated.
Do you think the possibility, since everything has been going through this year, that I know that's an outside group, that the funds we receive, you think we'd be able to use that to repay the cost for the students?
It would qualify, I believe, for it's not considered a learning loss or a credit recovery kind of program. Mm-hmm. It's an extension program. So I'm hesitant to do that, and I'm also hesitant to do it just because, and we can talk about that, I really didn't give it much thought, because it is offered by a for-profit company. Right. We can offer scholarships and do something with some of our kids if we would like to do that, and I can work with the company to decide how they would like to do that. And if parents are interested and want to apply for the scholarship, we could definitely increase the amount of students that would do that. We already do some of that, but maybe if we made it a little bit more public, it might get more kids involved. It's a 1-week session in July, and that kind of an opportunity I think is not a bad, but I'm hesitant if we want to do something specific to learning loss or STEM and STEAM. I would suggest that maybe we explore doing something a little bit different than Camp Invention and keep that as a separate entity, just to keep it a little bit more clean, or offer scholarships if kids are interested.
If you don't, and again, not speaking for the whole board, but maybe that's something we can look at and present back to us. We still have some time with that, obviously.
We do.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if it's okay, Dr. Walsh.
Sure.
Take a look at it and see what we can come up with. I like the scholarship idea.
Okay.
A lot. Very good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Dr. O'Rourke,
Yes.
for the elementary schools, the 9:30 to 10:30, if the parents choose to do it in person, that is totally in person. These children will not be working on a computer or anything else. What they're going to be doing is in-person connecting.
There will be instruction that goes on in person, and it's not with the parents. That in-person intensive is for those kids will be invited that are at a learning loss, so that the data has indicated that. And there will be an in-person, but it will be driven by a prescriptive program that will be online as well. It's not a standalone, the teacher is using handouts or whatever. There's a piece to that will still be computer-based. And it is, that intensive piece will be for kids that have either failed for the year or have significant skill deficit, will be invited to come.
So what are we doing for the parent that says, I don't think my child is getting some of the key elements that are going on, but their grades aren't showing it, and their DIBELS testing is not showing it. What is their option for the
Well,
summer?
if their grades are not, you're saying that
The
their grades are
not-
fine,
yes.
their DIBELS are fine, then they would have the opportunity to take advantage of the diagnostic programs that we'll have offered online.
So there is no in-person for that parent that would prefer that child to be done in person for that?
Not at this point, no.
So
I would ask, if possible, could we look at that? There are a lot of parents that don't want their kids on a remote computer this summer at all. There has been way too much screen time. I don't care if you're in kindergarten through 12th grade, way too much screen time this year, no matter how it is. I would urge you to
With some of those kids that you were talking about, one of the things that I was thinking that we could definitely do that is through the tutoring program that would continue, throughout the summer for a few hours a week, but not the intensive
And it may
4
be
hours.
that we need to look at right after school for even that parent, because they're going on vacation and they do want some downtime, and that tutor program goes throughout the year. That's not as consistent. But I'm going to urge you as an elementary parent to please, as minimal as possible screen time, especially for in-person learning.
And we'll, the other piece of that is what the next, as I was saying, the next steps is to get information out to parents, see what the interest would be, get staffing, and then based on the interest in the staffing, we will then be able to say specifically in more detail exactly what we have to offer and how.
So let me make sure I understand this. So we're first of all targeting the students who are, by data, clearly behind.
Correct.
And those are our focus for the in-person
Correct.
education. And then for others who feel like they need extra help or whatever, at this point in time, we only have the remote component as a possibility because we have to staff for the kids who definitely are far behind first.
Correct.
Okay. And then this other piece that you're talking about, that you're looking to buy a program, is that for something throughout the whole summer or?
Correct.
Okay, so the June 15th to July 1st is in-person in school and/or remote with a dedicated teacher working with that child. And then for the rest of the school year, summer, you're looking at an option to buy a program to help students.
Correct.
Is that how I
Correct.
understand it?
The in-person piece, because we want to have it diagnostic and we don't want to have it in prescriptive. And what that means is certain kids may need, that are in, fourth grade, some kids might need multiplication facts, some kids might need fractions. So we want to make it that it is individualized, prescriptive in nature. So with that in mind, the intensive piece will start with a pre-test saying the weaknesses based on the Pennsylvania standards or the skill set for fourth grade. The prescription of these are the different lessons that need to be taught. And then that will gear that instructional piece. So with that being said, the instruction will be almost a centered piece that the fourth grade that come in, say there's 20 fourth grade students that are in need of this intensive care, they will come in, they will take the diagnostic, the teachers will have them in center approaches where so much of that time, that math time, will be in a small group working with the teacher. Some of it might be working on the computer on that particular skill piece. Some of it might be playing games with their peers to practice that skill. So that is the encompassing piece of the meeting that goal of that student individualized. Because we don't, to say that a kid that did not pass fourth grade mathematics needs all of the fourth grade standards met in an intensive summer program is not really focusing on their particular needs. We want to focus this on what the learning loss is for that particular child, and then group the kids to best meet their needs based on that learning loss.
Okay, and then to continue, so this credit recovery thing also, so 12 hours of algebra instruction, which is 3 weeks, four times a week, right? 12 hours, was that equals a credit recovery?
No, the credit recovery will be beyond that. But with the piece of that, it'll be, the credit recovery programs are all online right now, whether we contract with Waterfront Learning that has an instructor attached to that, or we contract with Eduseer that has a learning coach that is immediate. The coming into school will give the opportunity for the kids to be in school to work on that for those hours that they're there. Typically, the credit recovery program is spanned out over so many lessons, say 30 lessons. Depending on the time that the kids are there in the classroom, they could typically do 2 lessons in a course. So with us having them for 4 hours, they could do the 30 lessons in 15 days, which is considered the course.
But at the high school, it's only 1 hour each day for that course.
But
So
what'll happen with that is that you'll have, not all of your kids, not all of the kids that are coming to the summer program are all going to need credit recovery for all 4 academic periods.
Okay.
They're going to be there for 4 hours. If they need them for, the 4 academic periods, then,
the hours, it didn't compute for me.
Yeah.
In terms of credit recovery.
so the credit recovery will be open for the students beyond the 3 weeks. So if they don't finish that component of what that course requirement is, they'll have the ability to continue to work on that beyond the 3 weeks.
And explain to me again the tutoring over the course of the summer?
Tutoring, what we had done over the winter break is we had students that were directly assigned to teachers to work on certain grade level standards. And the teachers, paraprofessionals that did the tutoring met with the kids for an hour online, provided the tutoring sessions, working on particular skill sets, and then, helped the students in that. So with that in mind, we have done after-school tutoring and before-school tutoring at our elementary schools in the past, but this would be more of a designated skill set based on the student need. And it could be, up to 4 hours a week, depending, working with the family to provide that tutoring based on the skills that they need. Maybe it's just ELA or.
And is that a request by the parent, or is that a prescription from a teacher? How do you qualify for tutoring?
That would be a request from the parent that they would like to have tutoring, and then we'll try to meet that need based on our staffing. We may not be able to meet all of the need. We're going to, depending on the staffing, work from the most needy students
Right.
upward. If we run out of staffing, then some of those families that would like the tutoring may need to be referred on to the online skill-based program that has them practice skills.
At one point, about a minute or two ago, you said tutoring online. Is this summer tutoring going to be in person?
It can be, or it can
Or
be
it can be-
online
okay.
based on, the staffing and based on the student need and what the parents want. I've had, I know Mrs. Turner says that she's had requests that for in-person and lack of screen time. I've had more parents call me and say that they just want something that they can work with their kids ongoing throughout the summer, no matter what they're doing as an online component. So we really want to try to gear our program to meet the needs of most of our students. And that's not, there's not a one answer for everyone, and we want to plan that out to meet the needs of the students, to meet, per the, first and foremost, those kids that we're recommending need it because they have not met the standard, and then also those parents that are requesting that support and what they are requesting, and how we do that.
Thank you.
And as my report has said, this is all contingent upon interest. We might have a lot of parents that want in-person tutoring, and maybe we don't offer as many opportunities with the online instruction or the in-person course. It's all subject to demand and staffing.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So then we'll take those programs, start to put together some marketing tools and get the message out and start recruiting both staff to work and students to work. Hopefully by this time next month, we'll have give you an idea of how many we've got signed up and how big those groups will be, et cetera.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think the publicity for it, that it's coming out soon, is a good.
Yeah.
Because it allows us then to get it all up and running.
Mr. Cromie and I have already had conversations on getting advertisements out here shortly, once I, was sure that we were moving in the right direction.
Okay, that's all I had for my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we have public comments on agenda items, and in order to make a public comment, you on our website or on the board docs, there's a link to go to the Google form in order to make a public comment, or you can call in at 412-851-6911. And our comments at this portion of the meeting are all about agenda items. Do we have any callers?
You have 3 callers. It does seem to indicate that all 3 callers are regarding the majorette issue.
Okay, so that would be after the meeting, then, that we'll be reading those items.
In public comments right now, I'm finding that have to be majorette.
Yeah,
Okay.
all 13 are
So,
All 13 are majorette.
as I said, all public comments to be read or heard during a meeting either have to be phoned in or you have to fill out the Google form on the website. Many comments were emailed to us this week that aren't part of this public comment procedure. But let me assure you that we have read all of them. Last week and continuing through this week, we've received comments about the age eligibility for, the grade eligibility for majorette and Bethel tryouts. This is a complicated decision that involves decades of tradition. The board is not making any changes to the tryout procedure at this time. This is a decision that has to be researched and evaluated by the music department, the administration, the band boosters, because of the far-reaching impact. This is not a decision to be made right before tryouts occur. We've asked that the administration look into this, research it, and if there is to be a change, that it comes to the board as a recommendation by the mid-semester break next year to allow all parties to adequately prepare for any change in tryout qualifications or procedures. We're going to now move to the business items on the agenda, and we have 20 items in the consent agenda. Is there anything that is in the consent agenda that we decided about last week that you would actually like to have moved out of the consent agenda at this time? Okay, so we have our memorandum with Beaver County for dual enrollment, extended school year program, COVID-19 compensatory services, resignations, sabbatical, the memorandum of understanding with the BPFT, change of assignment, appointment of personnel, salaries and bills, financial report, budgetary transfers, intra-fund transfer, facilities waiver, adoption of Allegheny Intermediate Unit Resolution, approval for the sale of the district vehicles, Pathfinder administrative budget, 403B investment provider, permission to advertise for bids, and a waiver of policy requirements for policy 217, the graduation requirements, and student agreement. Did you have your hand up? Did you? Okay. I need a motion to approve all 20 items.
So
I
moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Nagel, seconded by Mr. Christensen. Any comment or questions?
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Mr. Scalzo.
Under Curriculum Committee, there's one item. I would like to move the approval of the student survey.
I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nagel. Mr. Nagel, would you like to talk about this a little bit?
So, again, I just want to share that this is the approval. This isn't the final student survey. The administration, Dr. O'Rourke, I apologize, Dr. Walsh, and I have worked on forming a survey as a template to take to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for their input, their feedback, and we will provide any changes or recommendations to the board and the solicitor for review before we send it out to our students. I'd also like to say that our discussions, as per our discussions, we are going to be surveying 7th through 12th graders, and we're talking about having focus groups for the younger students because we don't want to lead them into ideas that they may not already be having. So we think that that would be much more effective for our data and less disruptive for them. But again, the survey that was shared with you all via email is what a lot more along the lines of where we're leaning, and it'll be going out to 7th and 12th graders after review and input from the DEI committee, as well as the review of the board and the solicitor.
And the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee meets tomorrow.
Yes, we meet tomorrow. We're asking to get approval so that we can proceed with reviewing and working on this in our committee meeting tomorrow.
Okay, any questions, comments? Okay.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. McGregor?
Yes, under personnel, there are 4 items: acceptance of resignation, approval of summer help for the custodial maintenance department, 3, approval of substitutes, and 4, the approval of extra duty responsibility programs. So I move that all 4 proceed.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Modrak. Are there any comments or questions on any one of those 4?
Sorry, one question for number 2. Mr. Fierce, we have 2 helpers. We anticipating more, or is that all we're cutting down to?
I do anticipate more. These are just 2 kids that are ready to start right away.
All right, thank you, sir.
So are we looking for people to apply?
I am starting to get together material because I am looking for more outside help because our grounds do need a lot of work and a lot of landscaping done. I do want to limit the actual inside help with still being a pandemic, not having as many bodies inside, but I do want to get something out for outside work.
And so for, to do that, how would a person apply for any of that? Or maybe I should ask Mr. Piscineri.
Yeah, I'm going to work with Nick, and we're going to put something out on the website, so it'll be under employment tab. So just look for it under the employment tab.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question also. It says not to exceed the 90 workdays, but below that it says it will exceed the 90 workdays. Can you provide a little bit of clarification on what we're voting for?
I'm not expecting it to exceed 90 days. They're coming in now because we are very behind with the weather, how the weather started this spring, and getting fields to a playable condition. We got behind.
Okay.
And these are two kids that were with us last summer that are able to start right away.
So it looks to me like there's two categories, summer grounds help
Right.
and summer help crew.
Right. They are classified under summer grounds help.
So
Summer grounds help.
I think they're two different
might
positions. The
might
first
extend.
paragraph is
Right,
one
correct.
position for
Okay.
internal. Is it the interior?
Yeah, there's summer help, which would be an internal position, and then summer grounds help, which would be external.
External landscaping.
Yes.
Okay.
and we're actually hiring the summer grounds help.
Correct.
That's what we're voting on,
Correct.
is hiring the summer grounds help. Okay.
Just a comment, I was happy to see that the sponsors for the stand committees have pretty much been filled by the staff in terms of applying for that. It's exciting as we just approved that stand as part of our extra duties positions, and that everyone for the most part they're almost full. That's great. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Thank you. Ms. Turner?
We have the second reading for approval of policies 218.3 and 340. We have the revisions of the following policies: 137.1, 150, 209, 217, 233, 303, 314, 331, 333, 334, 335, 611, 626, 810.1, and 810.3. And then the second reading for the policy rescinds: 403, 431, 433, 434, 434.1, 435, 503, 531, 534, and 535.
Any questions for Ms. Turner or for Ms. Zundel? I just want to congratulate you on working to get our goal done for the year, both of you, and whoever else on administration is working on that also. Mary Beth and Anthony. It's wonderful to see this every time on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have to vote on any one of those because it's a second reading. Okay, the first item under other is about the school reopening plan, and does anyone want to talk about that? I know Dr. Jansani's not available.
Right, so this is what he presented to the board last week. This is a revision to the health and safety plan with some of the changes that were authorized, I guess, or recommended through Pennsylvania Department of Health. Item 2 is the same changes to the athletics health and safety plan. And those items were shared with the board last week during my agenda. So these are the motions to approve them and submit those revisions to PDE. Item 4 on the list is at the board's request last week to make a clear statement about the intent to open 5 days next year. And that's motion item number 4 as a resolution. Mrs. Zundel prepared that for us for your approval tonight.
Okay. And I believe number 3 is regarding our Latin program. And
That is
number
correct.
5 is our memorandum of understanding with the Bethel Park Police Department that we renew every year, every 2 years, in terms of our relationship and how we work together with the Bethel Park Police Department. Okay, so I'm going to take them individually, Mr. McCausland. I need a motion to approve number 1.
I move to adopt or approve the revised phased school reopening and health and safety plan.
Okay, I need a
Second.
second by Ms. Turner. Does anyone have any particular questions about that or comments? It just changed regarding the requirements from the state and so forth, is what Dr. Jansani explained
Correct,
last
just a
week.
few of the procedures that we're following. For instance, the using Fridays to reset the counts and those sorts of things are clarified. So it's substantially the same plan that's been in place most of the year with a few adjustments tonight.
Would you be able to just expand upon that point a little bit? Because we did receive a few emails this week asking why we weren't 5 days. Maybe expand on that to explain to the public once again the reason for remaining asynchronous on Fridays.
Right, so this particular plan doesn't necessarily address that, but what you're really talking about is how we're not 5 days yet each week.
No.
And the number one driver of that issue has to do with cases and has to do with the level of designation in Allegheny County, which is, again, this week substantial. Transmission, number of cases in the schools, and frankly, that the cases that we're looking at, for instance, last week there were 589 cases reported in schools across Allegheny County. 580 of them were students, only 9 adults, which is a flip from where we were back in the fall with mostly adult cases, and now we're looking at the numbers moving down to the students. And so the ability is to maintain 4 days with an asynchronous Friday gives us that extra day for the cleaning, and the gap between the building use and getting separation from cases to enable us to reset our accounts over the weekend and start back at 0 on Monday each week. And that has been able to keep the buildings open and in person for 4 days. So I think it's for all those reasons that we've stated the 4-day with Fridays being asynchronous Fridays.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was a good explanation.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, Mr. McCausland?
Voting is open. Motion carries.
This next approval of the revision to the athletics program focuses on the spring sports and what are the requirements for the spring sports in terms of health and safety. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nagel,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Modrak. Any questions or comments?
These have already been all implemented since spring sports have been going for months. So we're
Yeah,
we're just adding it to the validation process that we needed. Okay. Just clarification for everyone that this is already in place, we're just validating it.
Right. Catching up with it on paper.
We're catching up with paperwork.
Yeah.
And I think we share this also with the rec department. I think Mr. Sloan shares what we do with
okay.
them to help them design their programs too. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. McCausland.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Okay, this next one is the settlement release with the Bethel Park Federation of Teachers. I need a motion to accept.
I move to adopt the settlement agreement and release with the Bethel Park Federation of Teachers.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Christensen, seconded by Ms. Turner. Any comments or questions?
Voting is open. Motion carries.
This next resolution is what we discussed last week about opening 5 days of learning next year. And I'd like to read part of the end of it. The Bethel Park School District will offer 5-day in-person school program for students K through 12 during the 21-22 school year. The board directs the district administration to actively plan for the return of students on a 5-day full-time schedule. And this resolution is subject to any state or federal mandated school building closure due to the rate of COVID-19 transmission in the Bethel Park community. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nagel,
Second.
seconded by Mr. McGregor. Any comments or questions?
So this says we're going to be in person 5 days a week, and if the state comes back and mandates, like they did this past year, a remote option, we will figure something else out. Those students in that classroom will have a live teacher 5 days a week just teaching them.
Right, that's what you're asking, that's what you're approving.
I just want to make that clear for
Yeah.
everybody else, that this is how we're moving forward.
So one reason why I brought this up last week, I think it was I who brought it up, but it was, last summer, I think that we all spent too much time waiting and seeing what was going to happen before we took action. This is just, so we start taking action now, and I would, what I would say is that we would now make this a part of our board meetings, and we start having regular discussions around what does the fall look like, assuming we're going to do both remote instruction as well as in-person instruction, or that we have those obligations, so we just kind of prepare for the worst. But just to make sure we're ready. I mean, there were districts around us that I think were kind of more successful than we are. We're launching the beginning of the year. There were some that were less prepared also, but I think just looking at some of those that were more prepared, they made some of those decisions earlier. They started acting on them, and I think we should be in that kind of position also going into next year.
I agree.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Voting is open.
And the fifth item is the I'm sorry.
Mrs. Turner.
Not coming up?
No.
Hang on. Let me reboot it again. There we go. Sorry.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And the last item is a memorandum of understanding that Ms. Zundel talked about at the beginning of the meeting that we have with the Bethel Park Police Department. Every 2 years, we renew this. I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Nagel, seconded by Mr. Christensen. Any comments or questions? I'm
Voting is open.
just grateful that we have this relationship with the Bethel Park
Long-lasting one.
Police Department. What did you say?
I said a long-lasting one.
Long-lasting
Since
relationship, yes.
2002.
And voting is open. Sorry about that. Motion carries.
Okay, we are now in the public comments part of the agenda where public comments can be on any topic. And do we still have people
We
waiting?
have 3 callers online.
Okay.
Mrs.
Let-
Dobus, could we put up the 2 minutes? Some of these public comments that have been written into us are way more than 300 words that have been outlined by the secretary of the school board. So is there any way, I understand, and we as school board members have read all of your comments. We have had access to these since they've come in. But when we go back to in-person, we are going to limit everyone to 2 minutes as the rules apply.
Yeah, we should run the timer when we read these.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion. I
Okay.
think I believe that's even in the advisement to public commenters
Yeah,
to
only
keep
first 2 minutes.
keep keep your comments under 2 minutes. I have a clock here. I can time it for
Will you do that?
whomever's reading. Mhm.
I didn't know
Thank
if
you.
we had a timer that could go up either, but yeah, I mean, it specifically says in the public comments, the board agenda item only the first 2 minutes, about 300 words will be read. And we,
Okay, and I also would ask if you are one of the 3 callers that are waiting, as I put you in the meeting, if you are listening to YouTube, to please turn down the volume on your computer so that there's not echoing. First speaker, the first caller is Nick Walsh from 5868 Bryan Drive.
2 minutes.
Nick, you are in the meeting. You have 2 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everyone's service, and just wanted to kind of touch base on the girls' ninth grade ability to participate in majorettes. Obviously, I know this is a change from maybe my original comments given the announcement tonight, and want to be completely respectful to everyone on the line. Just as background, I'm like the organization I work for. I'm our culture champion in the region. And it's, to be honest, it's real. I'm appalled by the fact that these girls don't have the same opportunities. And we hear the word tradition, which, like, if you think about a woman in the 19 teens, like, that's not a pleasant sight. And I have a daughter, and I really think it's, and maybe there's a reason I don't understand it. I'd love to hear it. But when I think of tradition, I just think about the fact that we need to be more progressive and include all, and give everyone an opportunity to participate in the activities that they enjoy. And this isn't obscure. There's other districts, and I'm 45 years old, and girls in my high school in ninth grade, and we had 300 kids a class, they were in majorettes and color guards. So this isn't something I think that's completely out of line. But I appreciate everyone's hard work, and I know you guys are tasked with a lot of different items, so I completely respect that. I really want our girls and the opportunities to experience in high school in terms of keeping motivation, having a passion, something, having a drive for something, to be recognized, and they should have the same opportunity. I was the quarterback of our football team, okay? I played ninth grade, 10th grade. I played baseball for 4 years. Every opportunity I had was there, and it was because I was a boy. And it took me a long time to realize that, and I'm frustrated not taking it out on you guys, but I think this needs to be heard. This is not fair. So again, I know this isn't a back and forth type thing, but I want this to be read because I care about our kids and our daughters, and they should have the respect and confidence and have these opportunities in high school. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
The next caller is Kelly Donaldson from 56605. It says Cooler. I'm not sure. If Kelly, if you could give us your address, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Kelly, you are in the meeting.
Hi, everyone. There's a group of girls, all smart, energetic, talented, nice girls in 8th grade at IMS that have come to you asking for a solution to a problem. They work hard, they train, practice, compete, and love what they do. And like any athlete playing for Bethel Park or any instrumentalist playing in the band, they want an opportunity to perform, play their sport, and join our esteemed marching band. And they are being denied a chance. For a long time, not the past 3 weeks, parents and students have approached the band director, the principal, the board with no actual response. This is not a new issue, folks. My daughter was one of those students last week. The meeting was adjourned without one comment on 11 letters on this subject. And the week before, many of you commented on a couple of the letters saying it seemed like a bizarre rule. And this week, we're pushed off. Our world is at a time where we embrace change, we embrace inclusion, trying to make something equitable for everyone, yet our district is excluding a group of young ladies from participation, all because of their grade level, when every other grade level equivalent activity includes them. Are there repercussions to allowing ninth graders to play an instrument in the band? Why is this different? You mentioned repercussions making a change, but this exclusion has repercussions. How many people here heard you say that the tradition to exclude ninth graders from trying out the Bethettes or majorettes is what you're upholding? Because I want to make it real clear that this is what you chose. And I hope you hear how ridiculous that sounds. We are arguing that exclusion is a good thing and a tradition of our district. Not once have I heard another response as to why the ninth graders cannot try out for the majorettes or Bethettes. But these young ladies have been able to cite exclusion, segregation, The fact that they lose an year of eligibility to hone their skills to compete for college scholarships. And somehow a tradition of exclusivity becomes the leg that we're standing on. And that seems like a really slippery slope to be standing on, folks. It seems as though we're spending more time and energy fighting this problem than solving it. Would someone please give me one legitimate reason beyond this notion of tradition that justifies this exclusion as good practice? What other activities do we have that pose the same exact restrictions that our ninth grade girls are facing?
Okay, okay, our last caller is Michaela at 5863 Wallace Avenue. Michaela, you are in the meeting. I think, maybe not. Michaela, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you're in the meeting. You can go ahead.
Okay. So I've done the whole ethical thing, and I've told you about how toxic and disgusting tradition is. So here's some facts. The BPSC website states that one of the board's primary responsibilities is to set district policies and regulations regarding school activities. They are to be exclusively held responsible for coming to a conclusion on this matter. Also, on the BPSC website, it states that Bethel Park will not discriminate in its educational programs or activities based on sex, age, or any other legally protected classification. The U.S. Education Department policy follows the Age Discrimination Act of 1975, which prohibits discrimination based on age in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance in schools that receive federal funds from the U.S. Department of Education. If violated, a complaint form is to be filed and submitted to the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. The band has currently been budgeted at least $40,000 for next year according to the preliminary budget. Moving forward, I will do one of two things. In the event that incoming freshmen are permitted to audition for the 2021-2022 school year, I will refrain from submitting my complaint to the Office of Civil Rights regarding a recent event in which, despite filling out a mandatory form and being insured in audition number by the band director, none of the 8th graders got one. I will be submitting a form because you guys already said you're not. I can't speak for any of the other 8th graders who filled out the form or their families who may have already submitted a complaint. In the event that we decide to continue excluding the girls, I will submit an additional complaint on that basis. There were more than 10 letters last week, so I would not be surprised if mine was accompanied by several others. I would say that the only other solution would be to cut funding for the band, but that really would depend on how valuable the tradition of exclusion is to the school board. But you asked to hear our voices, and then you came to a conclusion prior to hearing them. So, I'll be doing it.
Any more comment? Any more phone calls?
That's all I have.
So if there are duplicates in terms of the Google, if there are duplicate names on the Google forms, do we read those also, or if it's already been read?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
There's 3
There were 3 comments.
from who called and versus Google.
You know, if the comments are called in the Google form, we'll just have somebody note, you know, we also received a written comment via the Google form.
So the first one was from a Walsh, right?
No, I said number 5, in the Google, number 5, number 8, number 12 were call-ins. Mr. Walsh is 8 and 12, he got 2 forms.
Okay.
And Miss Donaldson is number 5.
Donaldson?
Yeah.
And, okay.
8 and 12, so we don't have to read 5, 8, and 12.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, our first comment is from Karen Maztak from 1309 Bethel Green Drive. It was brought to my attention that the 8th grade girls entering 9th grade are not permitted to try out for the high school Bethettes or majorettes until they are entering 10th grade. This is not the case in any other sport and needs to be changed to allow everyone the same opportunities to compete in high school for 4 years, not 3. It's not up to the coaches but the board to change this outdated policy to great equality in all sports. Next
one's Barb Friday, 955 Clifton Road. Hello, after hearing the powerful and moving letters sent in to the last board meeting by the passionate young woman, I was disappointed in the board's reaction and request for phone calls to be made. These young women poured their hearts and soul into these letters and made powerful, moving statements. Your obligation as a board is to set policies and regulations regarding school activities, and if those letters weren't moving enough for some immediate discussions about eradicating this outdated policy, I don't know what more you need to hear. My daughter is only in 5th grade now, but has been twirling for 3 years. I was so inspired to hear these young women last week fight for the rights and the rights of their peers behind them. In 2021, this should not be allowed to continue when such passion is coming from our youth. They expressed their concern and desire for an equal playing field that elected school board members then just shut the meeting down. What example is this showing for our youth? I urge you to listen to their honest, raw concerns and desire to bring about positive change. This can have an impact for years to come on our youth, positive or negative. It is in your hands, and I encourage you to help these women become powerful leaders. Barb Friday.
Laura Ashworth, 204 Kendall Lane, Bethel Park, PA. As a lifelong Bethel Park resident, Bethel Park High School grad, and mom of a Bethel Park High School graduate, I've always been proud to have grown up in this community. It's time for the board to approve freshman majorettes to be included in all events that upperclassmen are invited to participate in.
Next one's from Charlie Donaldson. Last week I wrote a letter to you that has not been addressed. I'm an 8th grader at IMS and I would like to participate in the majorettes. Have you made a decision regarding allowing rising freshmen to participate in majorettes, or will you continue to exclude us? I love twirling, and someday I would love to participate at a collegiate level. Scholarships are sometimes given for collegiate twirlers. Your decision to exclude me from participation could hurt my chances against girls who are given 4 years of participation in high school. Please let us twirl. Please let us twirl. My friends can participate in their chosen activities. Why can't I?
Okay, the next one was also called in, so we can skip to number
we can?
6.
Okay. I have 6. It's Matt Yee. Dear school administrators and school
Read his
board.
address, please.
Sorry. 5863 Wallace Avenue. I am writing to you in regards to the majorettes being able to try out coming into their 9th grade year. It has been an issue since 2017-2018 school year in my house, and I know it was brought to the attention of the band director a few times during the 2018-19 school year, and again during the 2019-2020 school year. My family was told it was not up to the band director, but the issue lies with the administration. Then it was brought to the attention of the school board, and it was inferred that it was not a school board decision. How is no one responsible for this? If there is truly no one who can make this decision, then someone or something needs to take the initiative and make the change. Thus far, I haven't heard any of the negative points having the 8th graders try out. None of the financial issues, legal, or other ramifications have been mentioned. The one rumor everyone knows those are dangerous is it's tradition. Traditions are great when they don't hurt or exclude people. There are traditions of segregation in this country. We don't let those into schools. We, being parents, guardians, and school staff, raise our children to be a higher standard. We raise them to look beyond appearance, thoughts, and characteristics of a person. I have no doubt they are strong, confident, and compassionate enough to deal with the prejudices that may come their way. Why, though, must we challenge them to see the past this prejudice? We have the honor of helping them succeed and to be great. More time being a majorette will only help them to succeed. Is there anything we are able to do here?
Next one is from a Kathy Balkovec, 2346 Caswell Drive. Hello, my name is Kathy Balkovec. I'm a parent of an upcoming 9th grader, and I want to support all of the upcoming 9th graders in having the opportunity to try out for majorettes for this coming year. I can list many reasons why I believe my daughter, her peers, and future generations should be allowed to try out as an grader for their ninth grade year. Some of those include the opportunity to participate in a school-offered activity to gain experience while leading to better performances as sophomores with their team, and those interested in trying out this year already have training in twirling, so they would be assets to the team. My question is, why are they not automatically invited to try out? It seems reasonable to me that the upcoming ninth graders would benefit the team and create amazing high school memories. Please consider the point of view of these girls and allow them the opportunity to look back at how, by speaking up, they can be heard and positive changes can be made. Thank you.
The next one is a Nick Walsh, 5868 Bryan Drive.
He spoke tonight.
He spoke. Nick spoke?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
There's
didn't
an
realize it was
Autumn, the
a-
next one.
Okay.
Autumn Welsh, 5868 Bryan Drive. I'm writing you in regards to letting eighth graders try out for majorettes. I think we need to remember we are talking about 13 to 14-year-old girls wanting to play their sport for their high school. It'd be one thing if in the recent past you had so many majorettes that you could fill all the uniforms, but that has not been the case. Now the sport is making a comeback and Bethel Park has the talent to fill those spots, but all we hear is no because of tradition or because girls in ninth grade can't learn to march. That is complete nonsense and utterly offensive. By giving these girls all 4 years as a majorette, you give self-esteem and pride in being involved in a sport for their community, not to mention the experience they need to continue on with twirling in college. It is truly a shock and a stain on our district that this female-dominated sport does not get the same consideration as the male-dominated sports that have allowed the boys to participate in tryouts in eighth grade. I really hope Bethel Park School Board will break tradition and let eighth graders try out for majorettes.
Is it Gabriella Balkovac?
Quebec.
2346 Caswell Drive. I am in eighth grade and attending IMS. Next year I will be at the high school and I would love to participate in majorette then. The team would benefit by having ninth graders on the team since there are very few students that are in the older grades that are interested in trying out. Because I have been twirling already, I feel that I am ready as qualified as older students. So I don't see any reason why we aren't eligible to try out. Please see what we have to offer before making a decision. It may be a tradition to exclude ninth graders, but sometimes change is necessary. Please let the change begin here.
Next one, Michelle Miller, 29 Oregon Trail. Hello all. Being a Bethel Park lifer, class of 1994 graduate, and my own children being third generation Bethel Park residents and future alumni, I'm aware of community and school district history. There was a time when only junior and senior class members could represent BPHS as a Beth Ed. Due to declining participation, the decision was to extend the opportunity to sophomores for tryouts. Using this as an example, the decision over the majorette tryout being restricted to freshmen based on the argument of its tradition is not valid. We should be encouraging participation, not discouraging our students to portray their school pride. Once again, the decline in participation speaks volumes. We are a vibrant district and our representation on the field should equate to that message. It would be in the best interest of many to vote yes.
Last one is Marcy Yee, 5863 Wallace Avenue. Since the 2018-19 school year, 75% of the majorettes who have graduated from BP have continued their sport at a collegiate level at schools such as California University of PA, WVU, and North Carolina State University. Bethel Park allows equal opportunities for others to try out and succeed in their sport of choice as freshmen, even if they do not have aspirations of continuing through college. So why then is Bethel Park allowing discrimination against the sport in which 75% of your recent graduates are continuing their sport in college and allowing this all in the name of tradition. For me, a tradition is visiting family on the holidays, not excluding young female athletes.
Is that the last one?
We do have one additional caller.
Okay.
The caller is Mr. John Cicero from 2518 Field Avenue.
No.
John?
No, it's Dawn
Oh, okay, Dawn, you were in the meeting.
Cicero.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So I'm a lifetime Bethel Park resident and an alumni, and I was a Bethette. My year, we weren't allowed to try out until we were going into our junior year, and the year that they switched it was my senior year, and they allowed sophomores because we had so many people graduating that year. This isn't just about tradition, and we're not excluding anybody. That's not what this is about. That's not why the policies are in place. The policies are in place because ninth graders are not permitted to go on the Bethel Park band trip. I don't know why that's a rule, but that's where you should start if you want to try out as a freshman. You can't have these routines and you can't have all this in place and then have half of your Bethettes and majorettes not be allowed on the trips to compete. Secondly, what about the Catholic schools? We have tons of kids that come in as freshmen from Catholic schools. Are we just not going to include them? They're not going to have an opportunity to try out either? Now you're talking about almost religious discrimination if you want to go technical. So this isn't about just excluding you because you're young. But do we allow freshmen to go to senior prom? No, we don't. Are they allowed to try out for top 21? No, they're not. So there are traditions in place, but there are reasons for these traditions. And I would advise, if you want to make this change, to go through the proper channels, and these are not those proper channels. You have to get the administration and the band directors and everybody on board with you. So good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Dawn.
Any more comment, any more call-ins?
There are no more calls.
Okay. And there are no more Google responses, right? Okay. So at this time, we'll have board comments. Anyone like to make any comments?
I actually would, as alumni and somebody that was in the band, I would like to reiterate what you said. If you want the change, and just like that last caller said, they're going to have to go through process. And process is sitting down with the band director, asking for a meeting, requesting the meeting, sitting down with the administration here at Central Administration and at the high school, and coming up with a plan and forming a formal recommendation to the board. That's how process works. It's a formal recommendation to the board. And Mrs. Dobus has laid that out twice tonight on how that process would work. So I would encourage these 8th grade girls, these 9th grade girls, 7th grade girls coming up, girls in the parochial school system that want to try out for Methettes or majorettes. So there's a process, and the process needs to be that you sit down and you do the process. Work with your student government officials at the high school and the middle school. They know how the process works. They can assist you in this process. They can assist you to get the meetings that you need set up. If but I would encourage the girls to set the meetings.
I think that has to start at the top. From my understanding is Mr. Thompson, they have requested that of him, and he has not made any motion. So that request is going to have to come from the top down.
Well, and it has. We have requested that there's an administrative committee or whatever it takes to make the recommendation by the mid-year next year to us, if there's going to be a change, if the recommendation is a change, because we're not going to make it on the heels of the tryout occurring within a week or whatever. It needs to be done via the administration. And the other comment I'd like to make, and I don't know if this is in defense of what has been going on for years and years and years, is that we actually had 20 emails on the opposite side, but we didn't read them because they didn't come through the Google form. But they were long and impassioned and outlined lots of reasons why we shouldn't make any change. So there are a number of people on both sides of the issue, and we're going to wait until next year if there's going to be a change based on a recommendation from an administration.
I would like to possibly modify that by a reasonable time, the midterm break next year, there's a presentation on the recommendation, whether to change it or whether to allow it to remain the same as it's been. That way we're able to address it to everybody, regardless of what the outcome and recommendation is. I would really think that it should be addressed one way or the other, not only if there's a recommendation to change.
I'd like to see it before your terms are done.
Yeah.
You know, so your experience, the four of you's had a lot of time in this district that you have to see it, review it, and then share with us your thoughts on it. So I'm challenging them to, if it's going to happen, let's get it done before the end of November.
I agree. I'm just asking them to do it not via public comments, but do it in the proper manner. And I think we're assisting them in doing that by asking Dr. Walsh and Mrs. Dobus to step in that process.
Would it be an unfair timeline to have that recommendation prepared by the beginning of the next school year?
It depends on if they can get the data they're looking for. I think it's the data.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
No, but I think the point is, and honestly, I take some exceptions to some of the comments we got in, and maybe it's because people in the community don't understand the role of the school board, but we don't develop operational solutions that this kind of decision involves. The last caller brought up a perfect point. I had no idea that ninth graders don't travel on the band trips. So how would that work if we had 3 or 4 freshmen on the squad, but they couldn't travel to some of the competitions, okay? So, you know, this topic is passionate. We've gotten lots of emails. It's not one-sided. I would say we've received even feedback across both sides. So all parties, those for, those against, those running the band program, those in the administration, need to get together and come up with a better comprehensive proposal. But right now, you know, these are just a series of passionate emails that really make it impossible to implement a good solution. So that's why I think, you know, the board is not saying, and I also take offense to the fact that we are intentionally discriminating people, because it's not the case. What we need is a solution that's well thought out, that we can implement, that actually is indeed fair to everybody, whether they're in 8th grade in IMS, or they're coming from parochial schools, or they're transferring in, you know, from wherever else. But it needs to be fair for everybody. So I think that the timeline is reasonable to have something by the middle of, by the break in January next year. So I think the board would be happy to entertain a good proposal and move it forward then.
Okay, any other board comments tonight?
Yeah, you know, I just want to say, it's a tough thing that both sides are going through. It really is. I mean, my recommendations are completely different from some people. I firmly believe if you're sitting in a high school class, and there's an opportunity, a possible opportunity for you to represent your school, you should be given that opportunity. You're also representing your family, yourself. Changing something just to change something is not a good reason either. And to keep going with something just because that's always the way it's been makes no sense to me either. So, but that means that it's going to take some time and dedication from administration to really work through those issues. and hopefully they come up with something really good, hopefully earlier than January, of next spring. Thank you.
Other comments or concerns? Board comments? Okay, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nagel, seconded by Mr. McGregor.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
This meeting is adjourned.